Muy buenos días. Es un gusto saludarles desde la Universidad de Monterrey y darles la más cordial bienvenida a nuestra 10ª edición del Congreso de Integridad Académica, el cual llevamos a cabo en colaboración con la Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, el Tecnológico de Monterrey, la Universidad EAFIT y la Universidad Panamericana, y es avalado por el International Center for Academic Integrity y la European Network for Academic Integrity. Mi nombre es Brenda García y me es muy grato poder coincidir hoy con ustedes para fortalecer la cultura de integridad académica. Agradecemos la presencia de directivos, profesores, estudiantes y colaboradores de diversas instituciones educativas de nivel nacional e internacional que hoy nos acompañan. Muy especialmente, agradecemos a los conferencistas que hoy compartirán con nosotros su valiosa experiencia en este tema, así como a nuestros patrocinadores Turnitin, Bimbo, Santander y FEMSA. Contaremos con conferencistas de distintas partes del mundo, como Canadá, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Emiratos Árabes Unidos, España, Estados Unidos, Nueva Zelanda, Perú, Reino Unido, República Checa y, por supuesto, México. Este espacio ha sido diseñado para compartir buenas prácticas, experiencias y retos para fortalecer la cultura de integridad académica entre los miembros de la comunidad educativa. Será una oportunidad de integración y conocimiento que facilitará la implementación o seguimiento de un sistema de integridad basado en los valores de honestidad, respeto, confianza, responsabilidad, justicia y valentía. Sean todos y todas bienvenidos. Antes de comenzar, me permito hacer unas breves recomendaciones. Estaremos utilizando la plataforma de Skype para cada una de nuestras sesiones. Ahí mismo podrán consultar el programa del evento e ir seleccionando cada una de las conferencias a las que desean asistir. Les informamos también que todas las sesiones serán grabadas y almacenadas por la Universidad de Monterrey, y en las próximas semanas podrán consultarlas también dentro de la plataforma Skype. Tenemos para su disposición la traducción simultánea de inglés-español, que podrán utilizar dando clic en el botón de intérprete, el cual está ubicado en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla. Para hacer preguntas a los conferencistas, pueden escribirlas durante su presentación en la sección de preguntas y respuestas. Esta está ubicada en la parte inferior de su pantalla, o bien también lo pueden hacer a través del chat. Igualmente, para cualquier duda que tengan durante el Congreso, pueden hacer uso de estas mismas opciones. Esperamos que lo disfruten mucho. Ahora, cedo la palabra a la licenciada Isabela Navarro Grueter, vicerrectora de Formación Integral de nuestra universidad, para compartir un mensaje e inaugurar oficialmente nuestro 10º Congreso de Integridad Académica. Adelante, Isabela.
Muchas gracias, Brenda. Muy buenos días a todos. Me da mucho gusto darles la más cordial bienvenida a nuestro 10º Congreso Internacional de Integridad Académica, que hemos titulado Integridad, la ruta hacia la excelencia. Dice James Lang en su libro Cheating Lessons que no hay camino a la excelencia académica que no pase por la integridad académica. Integridad académica y excelencia académica son las dos caras de una misma moneda. No es posible encontrar una sin la otra. Hace más de 12 años, la Universidad de Monterrey asumió el compromiso de liderar una cruzada por la integridad académica y el comportamiento ético. La creación de un centro de integridad y la celebración de este congreso, que hoy festeja su 10º aniversario, son prueba de ello. En esta ocasión hemos recibido más de 1,800 inscripciones y nos alegra mucho dar la bienvenida a profesores, directivos, colaboradores y estudiantes que hoy nos acompañan desde diferentes partes del mundo. En épocas recientes, hemos aprendido muy bien la lección de que, a pesar de la distancia, podemos estar más unidos que nunca cuando hay temas importantes como lo es el que hoy nos ocupa. En este congreso tendremos la oportunidad de compartir retos, experiencias, buenas prácticas que nos permitan continuar construyendo la cultura de integridad académica en nuestras respectivas instituciones educativas. Y podremos aprender de los mejores a nivel mundial, pues hemos logrado integrar un programa de conferencias, talleres y presentaciones en el que participarán 40 expertos de 11 países diferentes. Es importante destacar el contexto en el que nos encontramos la mayoría de las instituciones educativas, particularmente las de América Latina. El regreso a la presencialidad, el regreso de nuestros estudiantes a los campus universitarios. Regresamos con un cúmulo de aprendizajes logrados durante la pandemia, con nuevas estrategias, con modalidades flexibles, con herramientas digitales, pero siempre con el constante reto de fortalecer la cultura de integridad que nos lleve hacia un aprendizaje genuino. Quiero aprovechar este momento para agradecer a quienes hacen posible la labor del Centro de Integridad UDEM, a Grupo Bimbo, FEMSA y Banco Santander, a las universidades aliadas que han colaborado activamente en la organización y despliegue del Congreso, al TEC de Monterrey, a la Universidad Panamericana, a la Universidad EAFIT y a la Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. Queremos agradecer también a las organizaciones líderes a nivel mundial que han respaldado la calidad de este Congreso y que con su reconocimiento han hecho posible llegar a diferentes latitudes. Me refiero al International Center for Academic Integrity y a la European Network for Academic Integrity. Finalmente, es importante agradecer a nuestro patrocinador, Turnitin, y por supuesto a todos nuestros conferencistas, por su fina generosidad y su enorme compromiso con la cultura de integridad. Sin ustedes, este congreso no sería posible. Me despido no sin antes recordarles que la UDEM es su casa y que fieles a nuestra misión, estamos para servirles y para compartir nuestras experiencias en este arduo pero muy satisfactorio camino hacia un campus cada vez más íntegro. Sean todos bienvenidos, que tengan un muy provechoso congreso, que sea este un espacio para aprender mucho y para crear y fortalecer vínculos con otros colegas. Muchas gracias, bienvenidos y que Dios los bendiga.
Agradecemos a la licenciada Isabela Navarro por su mensaje. A continuación, demos la bienvenida a nuestra primera conferencista magistral, la doctora Trisha Bertram Gallant, de UC San Diego en Estados Unidos. Trisha es la directora de Integridad Académica de la Universidad de California en San Diego, miembro emérito del Consejo del Centro Internacional para la Integridad Académica y ex profesora de la Universidad de San Diego y de la Universidad de California en San Diego. Es autora, coautora y editora de numerosos artículos, capítulos y libros sobre integridad académica. También es asesora y capacita a profesores en colegios y universidades de todo el mundo. Sus publicaciones más recientes incluyen Cheating Academic Integrity, Lessons from 30 Years of Research, y un número especial del Journal of College and Character. Sus libros anteriores, como Creating the Ethical Academy, A Systems Approach to Understanding Misconduct and Empowering Change in Higher Education, así como Cheating in School, What We Know and What We Can Do, and Academic Integrity in the 21st Century, A Teaching and Learning Imperative, fueron aportaciones fundamentales al campo. La doctora Trisha Bertram Gallant nos presentará la conferencia titulada Celebrando 10 años, retrospectiva sobre la integridad académica y una mirada hacia el futuro. Escuchemos ahora a la doctora Bertram Gallant. Bienvenida.
Thank you, Brenda. Really appreciate it. Brenda, actually, if you can turn your video back on, are you seeing my presenter view or the correct view?
I'm seeing your presenting view, academic integrity, with a blue background.
Yeah, but you should be seeing, but I don't want you to see the presenter view. I want you to see.
Okay, now I'm seeing you.
Yes. But I want you to see just the slides, not the presenter view. What are you seeing?
I'm seeing the presenter view.
Huh. Strange. Okay, I'm going to fix it. Hold on.
It's now you can.
Yeah, hold on. I'm
okay.
just gonna... There. Is that better?
I think the previous one was better. Sorry. The PowerPoint presentation on a slide presentation.
You're not seeing the PowerPoint at all?
I'm seeing the presentation but in another program. It's not the PowerPoint. But I think from the audience, it's better to look to the previous one.
Huh. I'm confused.
Can you go back?
Well, I don't really want people to see my presenter version.
No. Let me ask the technology assistants to see if they can show up your presentation.
Okay. So sorry.
Can you try to okay, there. Now I'm there. We can see now the presentation.
Okay. And so will somebody I have to say, go forward?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm not sure what my computer is doing this morning. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. I slightly changed the subtitle, but the essence of my talk is the same. I'm looking at the last 10 years in celebration of what UDEM and others in Latin America have done, and the lessons we've learned and what we might learn about going forward. So first, before I do that, I of course want to, next slide, please. This is going to be difficult. First, a big, tremendous felicidades to UDEM and all of your partners for 10 years of work spreading the academic integrity movement throughout Latin America, but also greatly influencing academic integrity work and knowledge in North America and beyond. As was said, there's people from all over the world attending this conference. Our global academic integrity community is better because of your involvement. And I have been inspired and motivated by you for the last 10 years. So thank you for everything you've done. And of course, thank you to the sponsors for making this event possible and free to everyone to attend. Your generosity enables us to spread this message of integrity far and wide. Next slide, please. Oops, skipped one. Okay, I want to use my time today to relive the last 10 years of academic integrity and share what lessons I think we've learned, and then how we should use those lessons to propel us into the future. And I'm going to use that with Star Wars. We're going to lean on that for lessons learned. And I choose this because it seems to be universal. Everybody knows Star Wars, regardless of what country you live in or what language you speak predominantly. And so even though we're all familiar with Star Wars, I would like to give you a little refresher courtesy of Copymatic, an artificial intelligence that can generate original text from only a title and some keywords. Next slide, please. In this case, I gave Copymatic the title, Star Wars and Academic Integrity. Click, please. Sorry, there's a lot of clicking. No, forward. Okay, that's not going to work. Okay, never mind. Just go back, please. I gave Copymatic the title, Star Wars and Academic Integrity, and sorry, wrong slide. I apologize. Is there a way I can drive the screen? Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I gave Copymatic the title, Star Wars and Did we just lose my slides? Can you still see my
Okay.
slides?
Teresa,
Yes.
Teresa, in order to make you feel more comfortable, can you try to share your presentation again so you can be able to the previous one, the very first one that you had in the computer, that's the one it was showing on a correct manner.
And what are you seeing?
I'm seeing the presentation, Star Wars Academic Integrity.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's try this again. In this case, I gave Copymatic the title, Star Wars and Academic Integrity, and the keywords, light side, cheating, dark side, and integrity. And it produced a 941 word article for me. And you can see 7 paragraphs and 7 headings. In particular, I'll draw your attention to its explanation of Star Wars. As Copymatic tells us, in Star Wars, there is a battle between the forces of good and evil, and academic integrity is at stake. Key in this fight are the Jedis, or the light side, the rebellion, and the Sith, or the Empire, or the dark side, or the empire. I think for most of us, we would position ourselves as the Jedi, the rebellion of the Sith lords of cheating and plagiarism, like those contract cheating companies, who we see as seeking to corrupt learning and academic integrity. Yet, there might be others who would see us, the education system, as the empire, while the companies out there who are trying to disrupt education are the Jedi, the rebellion, the resistance, the good guys. And so this brings us to lesson number 1 from Star Wars. Lesson number 1, everyone has a light and dark side. In Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker succumbed to the dark side after a failure to resist. He succumbed out of fear and a thirst for power. The lesson is that there is light and dark in each of us, and it's not always easy to resist the dark side. This is true for our students, who on the good side want to learn, they seek to grow, they desire to be good, and they aim to do the right thing. But it's also true that there's this dark side, that they need the grade, they covet the course credit, they pressure to succeed at all costs, and therefore they succumb to temptation. I talk about this all the time when I say around my university and elsewhere that generally students are human beings who are good people who make bad decisions under stress and pressure. It's also true for the education system, isn't it? The education system has a dark side, so to speak. Of course, we want to educate, we seek to support, we desire student success, and we aim to do the right thing. But we need the tuition. We covet retention rates. We also have pressures to succeed at all costs, and we too have succumbed to temptations. And if we didn't realize this before the pandemic, we certainly realized it during. Inflexible course delivery mechanisms, archaic pedagogies, a cheating problem. And I say this not to excuse the unethical behavior of the disruptors out there, but to remind us that we, the education system, can also be seen as the evil empire. And this leads us to lesson number 2. It's never too late to do the right thing. In Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader, who, if you recall, is Anakin Skywalker, the I am your father guy to Luke Skywalker, right? He's faced with a fundamental ethical issue. Vader is watching his boss, the Emperor, torture his son, Luke Skywalker. And while this may seem like an easy choice for most of us, Vader has been working for years on the dark side. He was working his way up to power. He was establishing the empire and reviving the empire. And now he was being faced with the consequences of that. And remember, Anakin, or Darth Vader, didn't start off on the dark side, right? So this is truly a moment of psychological conflict for him. Vader is torn. Do I continue to choose my boss and the dark side, or save my son? In the end, Vader chose the latter, which we might see in Star Wars portrayed as the right thing. And we try to teach our students this lesson, don't we? Even as we are facing that moment, that decision to cheat or not to cheat, we tell our students, you can choose the right thing. You can choose not to submit that paper that someone else wrote for you. You can choose to erase the answer of the question you copied from Chegg. You can choose to not hand in that extra assignment that you plagiarized from Wikipedia. And it's never too late for the for us, the education system, the global education system, to do the right thing either. Let the education system take a page from the academic integrity Jedis that have been working tirelessly over the last 10 years to battle in the integrity wars. And it's probably many of us who are presenting today and many people in the audience, but I want to highlight a few examples. Of course, UDEM, who started this Congress, and I would say the Latin American rebellion against cheating in 2013. The International Center for Academic Integrity, right like 11 years ago, celebrated their 20th anniversary and then updated their fundamental foundational document called Fundamental Values in 2014 and again in 2021. You all remember Tracy's and Springer's publication of the huge academic handbook for academic integrity in 2016. The European Network was formed in 2017. Those of you that watch the news in the States remember Operation Varsity Blues, where finally the FBI started getting involved in what would be a massive contract cheating, essentially admissions scandal in the US. This was big news. The US doesn't move very much as a nation against contract cheating. That was 2019. And we know that New Zealand and Australia and the UK and Ireland all created laws to try and clamp down on contract cheating. One of my favorite Jedis from the last couple of years is Derek Newton's The Cheat Sheet. I anxiously await reading that when it comes out. I think Derek has shone a very bright blue light on some of the issues that we're facing. ICAI rebooted the McCabe survey and the academic integrity rating system. And we've had computerized and human contract cheating detection tools created to help us get a sense of what's going on out there. And obviously I could go on, and I'm sorry if I missed something that you thought was extremely important, extremely important Jedi over the last 10 years, but there's been a lot. There's been a lot of work over the last 10 years, and it was all kind of forward thinking and hopeful, like we can do this. Just look at over 19,000 Google hits in that time frame. There's a lot of us doing a lot of good work, and it's never too late to keep trying or to start. And there's so much more talk now than before the pandemic, right? About the need to change the way we do things in higher ed. And yet, despite all of this work of all of us involved in academic integrity, there still seems to be a lack of progress in the educational system. And this brings us to lesson 3. Reality often doesn't live up to the myths. In The Last Jedi, the myth of the invincibility and our source of hope, Luke Skywalker, is disillusioned with reality. He is unwilling to fight the dark side. He is pessimistic. He's kind of burnt out, really. And he reminds us that what we see as truth is filtered through our own circumstances. So to explore this lesson, let's first look at the myths about cheating and academic integrity that were quite prominent within the education system before the pandemic, and you might recognize these myths as still occurring in your institution. So a lot of society believed that cheating was largely under control because education was in person, right? There was a belief among professors that my assignment is cheat-proof, or students don't cheat in my class. I'm sure many of us have heard that uttered by a professor or two. There was also predominant belief that cheating was a result of ignorance. Oh, if we only just did more and more and more education about academic integrity, students would stop cheating. There's also this idea that cheating only hurts the cheater. It's a victimless crime. And oh, well, if they're going to cheat, let them cheat. Or that cheating was so rationally based on a cost-benefit analysis that if we just told them what the punishment would be, they'd never cheat again. And again, this assumes that students, unlike most human beings, are long rather than short-term thinkers. And we were so busy trying to create cultures that would resist the dark side, cultures that would support students doing the right thing, even when no one was watching. Yet the majority of the education system was doing the same thing that they have been doing for centuries. At the same time, for those of us paying attention, we could see that these myths were being disrupted by reality. Homework help companies exploded in revenue and funding, and not just during the pandemic, but beforehand. Chegg went public in 2013, added tutoring in 2014, acquired a language learning tutoring company in 2021. Course Hero raised $15 million in seed funding in 2014, and then another $380,000 financing in 2021. The reality was there was a lot of contract cheating going on already. Australia knew this or recognized this before many of us, largely because of the My Master scandal in 2015, which is why Australia, generally speaking, is further ahead than most of us on this contract cheating front. We realized and recognized that there might be as many as 35 million students possibly contract cheating. And this was Phil Newton's estimate based on a review of the research, but that was all the way back in 2018, 4 years ago. We discovered that there were thousands of writers in Kenya and some other countries making a living as contract cheating providers. And we knew that artificial intelligence was writing at the time, 10 years ago, pretty crappy papers, you could kind of tell. But now they're writing better papers, and they're doing math, and they're doing computer programming, and they're making art. And I think we're all painfully aware of how much cheating increased during emergency remote teaching or the pandemic. We all know this, but just look at the skyrocketing results when you Google search for different kinds of contract cheating. Those were the realities, or are the realities. And this brings us to our fourth lesson. Failure is the greatest teacher. As Yoda states to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, the greatest teacher failure is. I hope the translator did the voice of Yoda when I did that. The Jedi saw every experience as a chance to learn, just like many of us see the ethical failure of cheating as a chance for our students to learn how to make better ethical decisions under stress and pressure. And so, shouldn't we look at our own failures during the pandemic in order to glean what lessons we can learn from it? When the pandemic fell upon us, we quickly shifted our in-person classes to emergency remote teaching. Note, we did not shift to online learning, most of us. We switched not because it was better for what we were doing, not because it would be better for students and their learning. No, we did it because it would provide continuity of service. And by continuing to collect tuition, it would allow us to keep educators and staff members employed and working and providing a service. In essence, we all walk down the proverbial Maslow's hierarchy of needs to focus on the bare necessities, these physiological and safety needs. And I'm not saying we should blame ourselves. It was an expected, and Maslow would likely argue, a natural and expected decision. But what happened as a result? Learning became a luxury, survival a necessity. Quality was at times sacrificed for continuity. I think I've talked with many professors who just said, students weren't learning in my class the last 2 years. And this is not just at higher ed, right? This is in our entire educational system from kindergarten through higher education. Many times there were a lot of debates about privacy and usually it won out against integrity. As we already said, cheating seemed to skyrocket. Homework help companies profited. Proctoring companies profited. Everybody kind of got burnt out. Faculty, staff, students, parents, right? And one of our biggest failures is that while this was going on, we failed to notice this rise of artificial intelligence, this increasing sophistication of it. I'm going to refer to artificial intelligence as AI2. because I am strictly opposing calling artificial intelligence AI, because our AI, academic integrity, existed first. So AI 2 is what I'm going to be saying for artificial intelligence. Now, to be clear, students have always been able to cheat on out-of-class assignments and remote tests, right? AI 2 does not change that. However, historically, cheating wasn't normalized and it was often detectable. In the early 2000s, the contract cheating industry started to change that by offering an Uber model of writers for hire, right? Hire a human to complete academic work for another human, plagiarism free. But what most of us have been ignoring is that artificial intelligence is the radical disruptor. It will disrupt the contract cheating industry, ending the source of income for many writers around the world, as well as it will disrupt our educational sector as we currently know it. And the process has already started. And you're going to be hearing from Thomas Lancaster, I believe, later in the conference. He's the expert on this, not me, but I wanted to share, kind of my viewpoint as a practitioner in the field. Now, AI 2 comes in many forms. For example, GPT-3 can write original narrative really quickly. And this is much different from the old programs that plagiarized and then used synonym generators to disguise the plagiarism. Those badly written papers were so obvious. These GPT-3 papers will not be so obvious because they are learning how to write like a human, as they say. And so cheating will be quick, easy, and cheap and hard to detect, at least by the human eye. In another hit, Copilot by GitHub can complete any intro programming assignment for our students. Apparently, it's also very good and completely free and being talked about a lot amongst computer scientists and engineers. DALL-E 2 can create works of art from a narrative prompt, and Minerva can solve mathematical questions. The ability of machines for deep learning grows exponentially every year. These 4 AI 2s are just examples. There's many, many more, but they inform us that artificial intelligence is here to stay, sophisticated and growing more sophisticated every day. So in short time, artificial intelligence will absolutely eliminate the usefulness. This is my prediction. Absolutely eliminate the usefulness of traditional, unproctored, out-of-class activities like research papers, essays, homeworks, online remote tests for assessing and certifying human learning knowledge or skills. So the moral of the story is the education system writ large failed to pay attention to the impact that artificial intelligence was going to have on integrity and learning, and I would say certification or degree integrity. But as Star Wars would inform us, our failures can be our greatest teacher. So what did this failure teach us? Cheating is easy, cheap, and popular. The integrity approach may be insufficient. The integrity approach I've talked about in that 2008 book that Brenda mentioned, that the integrity approach is let's just develop integrity in our institutions, in our students, and that'll work. And we've been doing that for 20 some years, some of us, and still when the pandemic and emergency remote teaching hit, it didn't sustain us, which lets us know that our norms of integrity seem to be easily corruptible by circumstances, by temptations, by opportunities. And that also seems to have told us that many students do not have the ability to morally self-regulate. When we were in person, we had proctors. We can kind of control behaviors by the way in which we taught and assess. But once people were out there on their own and could basically choose to do whatever they wanted, there was a lot of lack of moral self-regulation. I'm not saying all students cheated, but we do know a lot did. We also learned that privacy, equity, and integrity are easily and wrongfully pitted against one another. We should have learned that student success cannot be simplified to retention and graduation. I love that the name of this Congress is Excellence or Integrity for Excellence, right? It's success with integrity. It's excellence with integrity. There is no success or excellence without integrity. Grades and degrees are false idols that can easily corrupt education. I had an email from a student. He had a violation. He was saying how sorry he was, but he ended with saying, my ultimate goal is to get the best, is to achieve the grades I want and get an A in every class at university, right? So that's what his focus on. It's not on learning. Those are his false idols. And that represents a lot of our students. I think lessons we should have learned or did learn is last century assessments are easily rigged. For professors that were still using multiple choice tests or, testing with the same essay prompts they used before, it's easily rigged that we can avoid learning through those assessments. And we learned that human learning is quickly being outpaced by machine learning. And so let's take a look at a profound quote about this last point. The rapid pace of change in the world of technology is having a profound impact on many industries, and higher education is no exception. One of the most significant changes is the increasing role that artificial intelligence is playing in society. As AI, too, I would say, becomes more sophisticated, it is starting to replace humans in many tasks, including those that require cognitive skills. This poses a threat to higher education, as the demand for jobs that require human cognitive skills is likely to decrease. This could lead to a less educated populace, as people will no longer need to attend college to get good jobs. And this paragraph was written in 10 seconds by Copymatic, after entering only a title and subtitle. And so this leads us to our fifth and final lesson from Star Wars. Okay, so maybe fifth and sixth. Learn from the past to build a better future, and we are what we pass on. Key in Star Wars is the idea that we should be mindful of our past and learn from it in order to make a better future. And for lesson 6, in The Last Jedi, Yoda tells Luke, we are what we grow beyond. This is the true burden of all masters. So what legacy will we, the masters of academic integrity, leave behind? What will be our legacy that we've learned from the past to help build a better future for education? In 2008, I argued in my book, Academic Integrity in the 21st Century, that we were failing to recognize that the internet was changing learning and the nature of knowledge and information. And yet we were still largely teaching as if it was the 20th century. That was 14 years ago. Now in 2022, I'm arguing that we, the education system writ large, has failed to recognize that still. We failed to recognize again, I'm not talking about those of us in the room probably, but the education system failed to recognize that contract cheating, the impact of the contract cheating industry, and now the rise of artificial intelligence, and that both of those things will require massive changes to education. We must overhaul our approach to teaching and assessment, which means we must overhaul our training of people, like faculty, or actually who should be doing teaching and assessment. So what does that look like? We need to consider what original work, or your own work in your own words, means in the age of artificial intelligence. We need to redefine what learning to write, do math, program, fill in the blank means. Perhaps it means learning with artificial intelligence. We need to redesign our writing assignments to really not just tangentially require in-class knowledge, and move assessment questions up higher up on any taxonomy of learning. And that's because right now the artificial intelligence isn't that good, but even eventually those two likely will not be very helpful for ensuring integrity in learning. We need to incorporate oral assessments. I know Europe, you're still doing oral assessments. We don't really do it in North America. And this not only helps verify knowledge, but it builds our students' capacities to talk about what they know. And it can be done. It's being done at UC San Diego in large classes. They have an NSF, they have a grant where they're studying how to scale it up. So it is possible. We could use artificial intelligence ourselves to save grading time, or shift faculty and tutors and instructional leaders to provide more robust feedback or more contact hours with their students, to really engage as mentors, coaches, facilitators, guides in learning, rather than as lecturers and graders. We will need to proctor summative assessments to protect degree integrity. We should flip our classrooms and make them more active. There's no reason anymore, and the pandemic has shown us this, that students won't put up with it. There's no reason to gather at the same time and place for our students to listen, but to engage and to assess and to work together and to learn from each other. We need to learn how to detect when an assessment was not completed by a student. We need to manage risk for different assessment types. Frankly, I think we need to move from competency-based education away from credit hours based. We certainly need to offer 24/7 learner support, right? Because our students are going elsewhere because we're not open for them. And this is from my Twitter world. We need to hashtag make it someone's job. The Australians started talking about this, Kay Murdoch and Kath Ellis in particular, but we need to make academic integrity someone's job in the university, in the education system. We can't just rely on individuals or hope, right? And these are just some initial ideas, but the moral of the integrity war story is that we need to stop rebelling and start evolving. It's no longer enough to rebel against the dark side, threatening integrity and learning. It's no longer enough to resist by simply building honor integrity cultures. It's no longer enough to educate students about integrity. It's no longer enough to leave cheating detection and responses up to individual teachers. And it's no longer enough to leave individual teachers on their own to figure out how to teach and assess better. It's time for the educational system to evolve, for our curricular to evolve, our teaching to evolve, our assessments to evolve, and for us to evolve. Thank you very much. And so sorry for all the problems we had at the beginning.
Thank you, Tricia. Muchas gracias, doctora Bertram. Muy interesante su ponencia. Tenemos algunas preguntas que hemos recopilado de nuestros asistentes. Y voy a dar lectura a algunas de ellas. What do you think is the ultimate skill we need to work on right now in order to become the Jedi for the future context of America Latina? Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the ultimate skill we need right now to become the ultimate Jedi? Depends on who we is. It depends on your role in the institution. I think, let me break that up. I think institutions, the universities, the colleges need to work on the skill of need to work on building the skills of faculty on how to teach and assess differently. And I think as academic integrity practitioners, we also need to develop our knowledge and skills in teaching and assessment design. I think that there is no separation between our skills that we already have in terms of how to talk about integrity, how to build culture, how to, help prevent cheating with, very kind of fundamental things like proctoring. But we, as academic integrity practitioners, need to become experts in pedagogy and assessment design. I really do think that that's the future. I've been saying that for a while, that we need to consider academic integrity as a teaching and learning issue. And I think artificial intelligence just makes that very prominent for us.
Thank you. Let me ask you another one. Isabel Godoy, that I believe it's a colleague from Católica de Chile. Hola, Isabel. She says, thank you for your presentation. I think that if professors believe in and experience, so to speak, academic integrity, they can transfer these to their students in the classroom. Therefore, how can teachers be supported in their academic integrity?
Well, that's the make it someone's job thing, right? So if we look at anything that our universities or colleges care about, our leaders put money and resources and attention to them. So why do we have writing centers? Well, because we've said, it's really important that we help our students write. And so we're going to give staff and we're going to give time and we're going to make this available to students. If we don't have academic integrity as a structure, as an infrastructure, if we don't have resources dedicated to it, then there's no hope for a professor who's really just struggling on a day-to-day basis to try and figure out, how do I convey my disciplinary knowledge to my students? How do I help them learn this? They don't have time to think about all these things. They certainly don't have time to do all of the cheating detection that they're currently having to do on their own at many places. And so I think that the universities really need to support academic integrity at a level that is on par with other things that the university cares about, and stop leaving it up to chance.
Gracias. Maricel Díaz, Doctora Tricia, if you like Tricia I will ask the interpreter to translate this question for you in English.
Okay.
De Maricel Díaz, Doctora Tricia, muchas gracias por esta introducción. Y en relación con la analogía explicada, ¿cómo orientar a esos nuevos Jedi para fortalecer la autonomía hacia ese camino de excelencia? ¿La puedo repetir otra vez? Doctora Tricia, muchas gracias por esta introducción. Y en relación con la analogía explicada, ¿cómo orientar a esos nuevos Jedi para fortalecer la autonomía hacia ese camino de excelencia?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think if you're talking about how do we, strengthen these Jedis, I don't know if you're talking about students or you're talking about faculty or academic integrity practitioners, but I'm going to take it to students for a second here. And look, it's a complicated problem, right? It's the empire and the rebellion are not monolith characters, right? They are complex metaphors to represent the complexity in our world and in our education system. But if we look at the education system as a whole, the Jedi has to be focused on learning. And we have in the education system, again, globally, emphasized grades and degree attainment as the only idols, as the only thing worth protecting. And we did that because we saw those grades and degrees as representative of learning, knowledge, and abilities. But we've lost our way, that they have become the goals in and of themselves. So to really create integrity Jedis, it's really I know this is huge, but it's reconfiguring the system and our focus to learning and assessment of that learning. And what does that look like in the age of artificial intelligence, in the age of contract cheating, in the age that we're in now? And once we help students find their way back to learning, look, human beings love to learn. When you were young, all you wanted to do was learn. You wanted to learn how to walk. You wanted to learn how to talk. You wanted to learn how to be independent. You wanted to learn. You were curious. One of our first words when we're kids is why? Because we're curious, right? And then we lose that along the way. And when we lose that path, when we lose that kind of Jedi focus, like Luke Skywalker lost his path, when we lose that path to learning, we will do whatever it takes. Faculty will, it's not just students using artificial intelligence and contract cheating providers to write papers. Faculty and researchers are doing it too. Let's not fool ourselves, right? So this is I'm calling it and I might be dipping into Jason Stevens' presentation later, but it's a pathogen, it's a virus, right? That we really have to fight back with getting back to our roots, learning, discovery of truths. And that's it. And I mean, It's a huge thing, I'm saying, I know, but we're past the time of tinkering around the edges.
Thank you so much, Trisha. Muchísimas gracias, doctora Trisha Bertram. Apreciamos su generosidad en compartir su experiencia con nosotros. Y nuevamente, le extendemos nuestro sincero reconocimiento. Muchísimas gracias. Y bueno, ya estamos listos para escuchar nuestra segunda conferencia magistral. Les recuerdo que las preguntas pueden hacerlas en cualquier momento en la sección de preguntas y respuestas ubicada en la parte inferior de su pantalla. El día de hoy es un honor presentar al doctor Thomas Chandley, vicepresidente y decano emérito de vida estudiantil de Davidson College. Tom Chandley ha estado involucrado en el tema de asuntos estudiantiles durante más de 40 años, en los cuales los últimos 29 han sido como director de asuntos estudiantiles. Colaboró en Davidson College desde 1994 hasta 2017. También se desempeñó como decano de estudiantes en Rhodes College y ocupó varios cargos en la Universidad de Minnesota, la Universidad de Carolina del Sur y la Universidad de Memphis. En 2018, fue decano de asuntos estudiantiles en la Universidad Duke
y no sabía.
Kunshan en China.
Que pueda entrar esta.
En 2018, fue decano de asuntos estudiantiles en la Universidad Duke Kunshan en China, función que realizó durante 13 meses. Es licenciado en psicología por Simpson College. Cuenta con una maestría en personal estudiantil universitario de la Universidad Estatal de Bowling Green y un doctorado por la Universidad de Minnesota en educación superior. Bajo su liderazgo en Davidson College, convirtió a esta institución en el primer capítulo colegiado de Freedom School y mejoró la fuerza y tradición del Código de Honor y el Consejo de Honor. Fue reconocido por NASPA en 2009 como pilar de la profesión, el premio más alto otorgado a los profesionales de la vida estudiantil, y también fue miembro del Consejo Asesor Internacional para Asuntos Estudiantiles en la UDEM. El doctor Thomas Chandley nos presentará la conferencia titulada Iniciando una cultura de honor para promover la integridad académica. Bienvenido, doctor Chandley, lo escuchamos.
Hola. Buenos días.
Bueno.
It is my distinct privilege to partner once again with my friends at the Universidad of Monterrey in the Conference on Academic Integrity. I very much enjoyed listening to Dr. Gallant and her wonderful work and largely agree with her themes, although I certainly will have a bit of a different twist to what I want you to consider today. I've had the pleasure of working with UDEM as well as Monterrey Tech over the last decade to strengthen their academic integrity initiatives. And I hope I might share with you in the brief time that we have today as well, some of those lessons. I will share a few comments, and then I'll be happy to leave plenty of time for your questions. So I begin with the question so elegantly discussed in the previous session. Why are we here? Why do we need directors of academic integrity? What are we concerned about? And unfortunately, it's all too apparent. The International Center for Academic Integrity, of which Dr. Gallant is an emeritus board member, has been researching cheating at high schools, colleges, and universities since 1990. And the data shows, unfortunately, academic dishonesty begins early. The center surveyed over 70,000 students in the US, and 58% of those students admitted to plagiarism. And 95% said they participated in some form of cheating. Do you think it better in your own country? Since their original research and subsequent follow-up studies, the center found that more than 60% of university students freely admitted to cheating in some form, 60%. In March 2020, in the midst of the global pandemic, 32% of all the students in their study said that they cheated in some way on an exam. Almost 1 out of 3 students in your classroom. That's sobering. So what do we mean by cheating? NACADA, the National Association for Academic Advising, defines cheating as copy material without proper citation, padding bibliographies, getting exam questions in advance, collaborative homework, turning in a paper done by others, and using notes unauthorized during an exam. The operationalization of cheating lends itself to that 2/3 figure cited previously. The collaborative homework and improper citation seem to form the bulk of this figure. So as I prepared for this, I thought I'd dig into a little bit for you. What is it about today's student, whether high school or college? Why do they choose to cheat? And as research has shown, there are, of course, multiple reasons. First, as cited earlier, students' habits and views on cheating are developed in high school, if not earlier. There are many reasons. It ranges from the more genuine lack of knowledge to outright dishonorable intentions. According to research cited at the Rochester Institute of Technology, the most frequently stated reasons students choose to plagiarize or cheat include confusion about what constitutes plagiarism or current university policies, which means, of course, that while we may have policies that pertain to plagiarism, they're often not well explained or understood by students or even the faculty, and thus becomes a real barrier. The desire to get a good grade. Students feel more pressure perhaps than ever to have the grade reflect not their academic performance, but what it might mean for them in their future. The fear of failing, not new. Many of us had the fear of failing when we were entering college and wondered if we could make it. Procrastination or poor time management. I will talk later about my experience with students over 30 years in dealing with academic dishonesty. And I would say more often than not, by far, these are decent enough students who have backed themselves into a corner because they didn't have, or they did not provide enough time to complete an assignment, and they did something dishonest. The fifth reason, a disinterest in the assignment. That may seem odd, but many students, if they are not interested in the subject matter, will do what they can to get around it. And then I think the most sobering one that has been mentioned before, and that is the belief that they will not get caught. So it's a risk-reward judgment that they make in the sense that they will get away with it. So, there's a variety of reasons why someone might not adhere to the school's policy of academic integrity. We all know that it could be difficult to stay on top with academics, with the added stress from life, with work, family, social, and political issues that they are confronting, and now, of course, the impact of the pandemic. A Harvard School of Education study in 2016 found that students who focused on external factors that might make their peers feel pressured to cheat. For example, one student wrote, "Peer pressure makes students cheat. Sometimes they have a reason to cheat, like they need to be the smartest kid in the class, unquote. Or Kayla from Massachusetts said, some people cheat because they want to seem cooler than their friends or try to impress their friends. Students cheat because they think if they cheat all the time, they're going to get smarter. Can't say I follow that logic, but it's from the mouths of a current student. In addition to pressure from peers, students spoke about the pressure from adults, pressures related to standardized testing and the demands of competing responsibilities. A study by the Josephine Institute of Ethics broke down why students cheat in the following ways. They're ambitious. That's right. They found that most students who cheat aren't lazy at all. In fact, perhaps they're too ambitious and have great visions for their future, but they know they won't achieve those goals without bad grades, so it's worth the compromise. No matter where they study, it's nearly impossible to get perfect scores on every test. In their view, a single bad grade can ruin their chances to get into the graduate school of their choice, get a scholarship, or land an internship, an ever more critical way to enter the world of work. When the educational system and tough competition on all markets impose such great standards, students have to find a way to deal with their slew of assignments and tests. That's why they decide to hire essay writers when they get stuck with papers and rely on different cheating methods during testing. A couple more reasons. The competition is ruthless. Another common cause, the pressure imposed by this competition. Boys, or young men in particular, have a tendency towards competitiveness from a very early age. They're being brought up to think that it's a dog-eat-dog kind of world. So they impose that attitude in their entire classroom environment. As students grow up, as they proceed through college, they realize they have to compete with every single person in the classroom to prove their value. But they don't abandon that competitive spirit in college when they enter a new world and have to prove their worth all over again. When they realize that almost everyone else is cheating, or at least 2 out of 3, and buying papers from essay writing services, they decide to compete with the same method, at least occasionally. They don't fear punishment. An online survey released among the students at Ohio University in 2006 showed that the results everyone expected or feared. 84% of the undergraduates and 55% of the graduate students admitted to cheating in the previous year. This shows a big gap between the realistic situation of cheating, the threats for severe punishments, and the actual detection of those practices. It seems like colleges and universities show institutional apathy in terms of finding ways to reveal modern cheating strategies, so the students don't fear possible punishments. It gets easier for them to decide, I'll just hire someone to write my essay when they know that there's a professor to prove it has been purchased online. Of course, with devices like Turnitin.com, for those schools who can afford the service, that can make the job easier, but many don't use that. Now, perhaps more interesting, and it gets into a point that Dr. Gallant talked about as well. A study out of the Ohio State University in 2021 discussed the consequences of moral disengagement. What do we mean by that? In the presentation on this topic, Perry stated, we have argued for a mechanism between this perception of a culture of cheating and actual downstream academic dishonesty. It brings up the topic of moral disengagement as a psychological process. What does that mean? Disengagement separates the student from the moral implications of academic dishonesty. Moral disengagement is more likely when a culture of cheating is allowed or there are little to no actions to prevent it. Therefore, cheating behaviors are more likely when a culture of cheating is considered acceptable by being ignored. This moral disengagement means the students might downplay the implications of dishonest behavior, justifying their cheating behaviors as a reaction against disengaged faculty or an out-of-touch administration, or feeling like, hey, it's really not hurting anyone. And then finally, why? There are too many papers to write, students say. Today's college professors are proponents for the method of giving frequent feedback to students. They often achieve that goal by assigning multiple papers throughout the term. Frequent grading is beneficial because it relieves students from the pressure of a final exam. But sometimes too much grading is simply too much. When these students find the same kind of activities in every class, when they're dealing with several projects for different courses, a single assignment can be overwhelming and add excessive burden. Since all these projects are important for the final grade, some students are inclined to rely on these unethical practices. Some of them decide to plagiarize or paraphrase online content. Others choose to purchase the papers from the various professional online services, all of which, of course, are dishonest. But as one student said, it seemed like it was the end of the world and there was no way I was going to get the paper done. It was already 2 a.m. It seemed like the only option I had. Another student said, if it's due in a half an hour, I know I don't have time to do it, so I find somebody who's better with words. I really don't feel bad. I don't feel like I'm hurting anyone. Again, moral disengagement. Mostly though, cheating is not the result of a pre-planned activity for students to sneak past their professors. At least in my experience, cheating often comes from a student who feels overwhelmed, underprepared, and pressured to succeed. Finally, one last student who happens to be older than most other students in a class says, this generation has always existed in a world where media and intellectual property don't have the same gravity. Think about it. When you're sitting at your computer, it's the same machine you've downloaded music with, possibly illegally. The same machine you stream videos for free, possibly illegally, that showed on HBO last night. So the environment and temptation to cheat seems omnipresent in today's higher education environment. As we emerged from the pandemic, there was certainly mounting evidence that it may have gotten worse, not better, in an era of online classes and exams. Of course, one can't help but note, without digging too far into this, that one doesn't have to go very far outside of academia to see examples in our world, and certainly in our nation, of lying, stealing, and cheating in public and private life. And don't think students don't pay attention to that. So it can all be sobering. But let's talk about the flip side. What does an atmosphere of academic integrity look like? Academic integrity is defined by some as the ethical use of information, thoughts, and ideas from which we build original thought to contribute to the academic conversation. What does that include? Just briefly, academic integrity includes the ethical search of information when researching your assignment, selecting ethical and credible sources and information to use in your discussion posts or papers, using available academic support responsibly and ethically, and communicating the information from others while contributing to your own original thoughts in an academically ethical manner. One might say, well, why does that matter? Meeting academic integrity expectations is important because it illustrates your own credibility, your own honor, the credibility of your university, the credibility of academic research and scholarship. When academic research is held to a high standard, this ensures that the information produced by academic researchers, including students more and more these days, is as close to the truth as we know and understand it. It is the foundation for which we stand upon. So I'm going to propose a radical change. Try cultivating honor. It is clear from the research carried out over the last few decades that traditional academic integrity policies just don't work. Gary Pavella, the past president of the International Center for Academic Integrity, states, an academic integrity policy without any kind of an honor code is very much a top-down process. He explains that when an administration develops, implements, and enforces policy, there's not much of a message beyond, we are the administration, we are going to prohibit this, we are going to try and catch you and punish you. In my over 3 decades of working with an institution-wide honor code, those that work are very much a partnership between the students, the faculty, and the administration. It's embedded into the culture of the place and is ever present. While I admit that this concept is very much a US-centric phenomena, can it work for you? Let's talk about that. The honor code tradition in the United States dates back to 1779, when it was first instituted at the College of William and Mary in the state of Virginia. It still exists today. Whilst cheating is taken seriously at all colleges, a formal honor code is a social contract that is meant to inspire students to not only prioritize personal integrity, but also to watch out for and support their peers. The methods of organization and consequences for cheating under an honor code vary widely and are often dependent on the cultural context of the college or university. At the University of Virginia, an institution with over 25,000 students, they pledge never to lie, cheat, or steal, or accept that the consequences for breaking this pledge is a permanent dismissal from the university. A one and done, no tolerance policy. At Davidson College, where I served as the vice president for student affairs and dean of students for 23 years, our sanction did not include expulsion, but often would include immediate suspension from the college for up to a year for any academic violation of the code. Does it work? Fair question. Unlike traditional academic policies, most honor codes clearly and directly promote a collaboration and cooperation between students and faculty that almost certainly would not exist otherwise. As stated previously, traditional academic policies have an us versus them climate, where the faculty and the administration try to police, detect, and punish academic dishonesty, and the students try to get away with it. It's a pretty toxic dynamic. Pavel again states that it is naive to believe that an honor code will prevent all cheating, and in fact, it doesn't. But studies have repeatedly shown that the rate of cheating with a school that has an honor code are lower than others. The late Don McCabe, a researcher often referred to as the founding father of academic research, said that fact may have more to do with the schools than the students. He stated, just having an honor code is not the answer. It has to be a living part of the culture and the environment to be effective. Allow me to dig into that for just a moment. The classic honor code states that while a citizen of this community, I agree not to lie, steal, or cheat, or tolerate it in others. A colleague of mine, former academic dean, once said to me that when one considers plagiarism, it is in fact lying, stealing, and cheating. While it directly affects student behavior, most expect the same of the faculty and staff as well. How does it work? When there are alleged honor code violations, students are involved in the judicial proceedings at varying levels. At some institutions like UVA, Haverford, William and Mary, Davidson, Washington and Lee, a student-only judicial board called the Honor Council hears the cases. Again, let me repeat, a student-only board. Others rely on a student faculty board. And I know at UDEM, for instance, when they began their version of the policy, they began with a student faculty board, and that may be wise. Penalties vary and can include censure, community service, failing grades, suspension, or even expulsion. I can say at Davidson, to be elected to the Honor Council was the most desired and revered student leadership position on campus. And once elected, you served your entire remaining time at the college. It changes the relationship between the students and the faculty, and this is so important. You have a collaboration, sometimes daily, between student leaders and faculty about what academic honor is, how to prevent it, how to resolve it. They're talking to each other. You get ideas and insights from students as to what some of the key problems are. You give feedback to the faculty on the importance of clarity in the syllabus on matters of academic integrity and the honor code. Another powerful element of the honor code is peer influence. When you have elected student leaders actually resolving cases, being given a position of responsibility, it's inevitable that they talk to their peers about it. While I'm very strict about not invading confidentiality, they do talk generally about what the rules are and how other students are held accountable. They're asked as individuals or as a committee to appear at faculty meetings, department meetings, board of trustees meetings, and student government. But you know, all of this requires a huge amount of trust. When you ask the faculty to either hand over or to share with students, one of the most historically important duties of the faculty, determining cheating and the consequences, it requires a real transformation in the academic culture. An honor code becomes a part of daily life. Professors include honor code information on the syllabus. Honor code information is included prominently on the university website. The honor code is a part of all admissions, conversations, and publications. The plaques of the honor code are installed throughout the institution and at some places in every classroom. Understanding and supporting the honor code is a part of the contract and orientation for all new faculty. You talk to the community about the code and how it's worked, including the previous semester's cases and how they were resolved. So it's understood that there are consequences for violations. And these are done in a very transparent fashion. You know, in my experience, all students are tempted to cheat, but you have to create an atmosphere that encourages all students to be in communication with their professors as often and conveniently as possible to avoid cheating, either inadvertently or intentionally. Create institutional traditions that underscore the importance of the honor code in daily life. Signing ceremonies during orientation in front of their peers, signatures of each class posted in a prominent location, mock trials that are held before the student body that show how the Honor Council works. You invite successful alumni back to give testimonies on how living a life of honor extends well beyond Davidson and into their personal and professional lives. An honor code that works is one that is fully supported by the students, faculty, staff, administration, trustees, and alumni. In fact, often when I went to an alumni gathering, the very first question I would get from the alumni there would be, how is the honor code working? But it has to include much more than trust. It has to include privileges that the students see every day. Non-proctored examinations where you trust students and you leave the room. Take-home exams with explicit instructions to not open book notes, conversations with others, etc. Not uncommon to leave belongings in the library and student center because they trust each other. You allow for self-scheduled final exams where the student can choose when and where within a building they can take a final exam. You create an atmosphere of trust where students actively participate in the process and making the rules and are held accountable to high standards. You know, once when there were several cases that had been reported to the student body several years ago, there was an editorial in the student newspaper that said, gee, it seems like the honor code is working against us. Well, so the honor code works technically against a student 12 to 15, perhaps 20 times a year in terms of the number of cases that result in suspension. But it works every day for a student who sees the privileges they gain from the trust they have earned. So where does that leave us? Your institution may seem to be too large or the culture too different to employ an honor code in replace of more traditional academic policies. But ask yourself honestly, is it working? If so, wonderful, even though you may be in rare company these days. But if not, and even if you can't fully adopt an honor code, consider the ingredients that make it work and how it could be adapted at your university. Can students be more involved in developing the academic integrity policy? Can students be more involved in the actual decision-making when a student is charged with a violation of the policy? How can you promote academic integrity from the start, even before they arrive? And then how do you promote the benefits to the community in general and the student body in particular when academic integrity works? A culture that promotes academic integrity makes university life better for all, where the faculty can focus on teaching, the students on learning, truly learning, and the administration on developing a relationship of trust and responsibility with, not against, the students. Thank you. I welcome your questions.
Gracias, Dr. Chanley, por compartirnos su ponencia. Tenemos algunas preguntas que hemos recopilado de nuestros asistentes y voy a dar lectura a las dos primeras. If you wish to activate your translation services, I'm going to read the first question in Spanish. Juan Carlos de la Riva. Saludos desde Puebla, Benemérita Universidad Autónoma de Puebla. Aquí hemos detectado que hay una carencia en la lectura de indicaciones y existe desconocimiento en cuanto a la situación de la citación. Después de 4 años de trabajo en el tema, hemos bajado los porcentajes de similitud en los textos y hemos fomentado la política de integridad académica para fomentar el uso ético de la información y la producción de trabajos originales. Estamos muy interesados y quisiéramos aprender más sobre el código de honor, así como la mejora en nuestros procesos. ¿Qué nos puede comentar al respecto?
Very good question, and I think it's probably true that in most cases, a university or college puts all of their policies that pertain to student life jammed into what they call a student handbook that I think students rarely pick up and read unless they are needing to because they've been found responsible for something. So we have to break through that, and I go back to a point that I made earlier that you don't begin once they arrive. It is so critical that when an admissions office is promoting your university to prospective students, they include in those conversations about academic integrity and what the expectations are. And if there is an honor code, not only what it means, but what privileges it entails. If an honor code was just about suspensions because of things they did wrong, it wouldn't work. It's about privilege and trust and tough consequences when they're violated. So I think that message has to start with prospective students. It has to be a critical part of orientation. As I mentioned, it has to be a critical part of new faculty orientation so they understand the culture coming into. And it has to be pervasive and a reminder to students throughout their time. I mentioned something simple, but I will say it again. An honor code signing ceremony at orientation where all the first year students entering sign it in front of their peers. And then you put those signatures in a very public place, in our case, an academic building. So every day when they walk by that, it's a common reminder of the importance of what they agreed to. So, those are just some things, but the messaging is critical beyond what might just be in a handbook somewhere. Is that helpful?
Así es, muchísimas gracias. Definitivamente tiene que ser parte de la cultura institucional y de los procesos iniciales, desde el reclutamiento hasta la despedida de los estudiantes que egresan de nuestras instituciones. Muy bien, continúo con la pregunta de Juana Delgado. How can we achieve a balance between discipline in the classroom without falling into the punitive in order to eradicate cheating in class?
Could you repeat that question, please?
How can we achieve a balance between discipline in the classroom without falling into the punitive in order to eradicate cheating in class?
Well, every institution is going to be different. It's a very appropriate question. I need to make it clear that in an institution that embraces an honor code, more often than not, the faculty are not the ones making the judgment in the classroom. So they may suspect a student of cheating, and they may turn that evidence over to an honor council, which may be all students or may be a faculty and staff student body, council. But they're the ones that make the decision. So the faculty actually get relieved of the responsibility of having to punish, if you will, a student, but hand it over to a council that they trust. I think that's pretty critical. I've said to students often in speeches that the hardest day for most faculty is the day they find a student cheating. And if they can be absolved of the responsibility of the punishment, I think it can allow them to focus on teaching.
You're right. Y bueno, concluimos este espacio con las palabras de Lucirene González, que nos dice, thank you, Dr. Stanley, for your inspiring words of wisdom. We would like to see more of you, if possible, and we need more training sessions regarding integrity. Y es así como nos despedimos del doctor. Le agradecemos también por su sabiduría y nuevamente extendemos nuestro reconocimiento por su valiosa contribución a este Congreso. Muchísimas gracias, Dr. Chandley. Querida audiencia, ahorita tenemos unos minutos antes de nuestra siguiente conferencia. Pueden aprovechar para ir por un refrigerio, levantarse, activarse un poco. Y vamos a regresar en punto de las 10:45. Muchísimas gracias.